Scott, isn't that house for sale, though?
Yeah.
Peter Piper.
People can't even get in the front door because of the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right there in the corner?
Yeah. Second or third house from this corner.
The doghouse.
Can we take these in opposite order, since this is gonna have a bearing on, I mean,
Sure.
could have a bearing on it, right?
Absolutely. We sure can. We can do whatever we want. There was an incorrect little bit of data on the updated budget sheets that Clarissa's printing. And so if you'd like me to start, we can. And I appreciate everyone coming. Let's see, it's 6:06. See. All right. I'd like to call our meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. And it looks like all council members are present, as well as Janice and Kelly and John Patrico. If you'll please bow your heads while I pray. Dear Lord, thank you for allowing us to meet here this evening to share our thoughts of our proposed tax rate with our residents, those live and present, as well as those that are at home. Let's make wise decisions in our residents and our own best interest, and keep Hollywood Park a wonderful, safe place to live. In your name, again, amen. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right. I'll take roll call again, and all the council members are still here. All right. And we just got some interesting news. Everyone that we received an award. This is from an architectural competition. The Builders Association.
The ABA.
Yes, for the buildings in the, was it the $2 to $10 million category, and the Voight Center won the award for the year. Pretty amazing. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
That's a cluttered category, so that's really amazing.
May I
Right?
may I suggest what a great advertising point that will be when it comes to selling our Voight Center?
Yeah, our own David Neugebauer will be here to present it to us on August 21st.
Oh, he will?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
Was he in
Yeah.
charge of voting?
you know, that would be a good question. That would be a great question. And we're going to reverse the orders of our new business items to better match their flow with our discussion tonight. John, if you'd like to offer some details up with your plan for the fire department, appreciate it.
Okay, I went ahead and put some information in front of y'all for tonight. I don't know if you'd like me to go through it or you'd just like to read it, and then I'll entertain any questions.
Well, I think it looks like you went to some effort to explain a little history of how the budgets have evolved as it's starting out, talking about the 16-17 budget year, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so
just kind of the cliff notes is helpful.
for the 16-17 budget, I had requested extra firefighter per shift. I was trying to eliminate being shorthanded on a regular basis when people were taking any time off. So my initial request was to have 3 additional people at a cost of about $130,000 to hire them. That was their salaries and benefits, altogether. The scheduled overtime that people work, and that's they work at that time was 24 on, 48 off, but it's really no difference with the 48.96 at all. The hours are all the same. They actually work over 106 hours for 2 pay periods, and then a third pay period they're under that many hours. At 106 they get paid overtime. So for 2 weeks they are scheduled to work overtime, and then the third week they don't, and then that just keeps rotating throughout the year. So at that time the $130,000 was too large of a pill, so to speak, for council to swallow, and they did not want to hire 3 more employees in the fire department. So I then suggested to have the same effect, to have a minimum of 4 man per shift. We can then just add money to our overtime, and if somebody took off, we would cover that spot with another firefighter and pay them overtime to work or use a part-timer if they're available. Basically, whoever signs up, we would divide the hours out, as people sign up, and that was over half the cost less than hiring 3 people. We added $60,000 roughly to the budget to cover overtime. That was approved by council. They decided that would be the better option, cheaper way to go, and that's how we're operating today. If somebody takes off, people sign up to cover the shift, and we cover that. So we always have a minimum of 4 people here.
Oh, you finished talking about? Okay.
Overtime, yes, that's. Yeah. Would you like me to go through the rest of the information, or just specifically that part?
There are nuances of distinction with your department versus the others as far as the scheduling that I think might be helpful. I know we were looking back at the scheduled overtime budget number going back from 2012 to 2015, and it stayed between, I think, 29 and 44 with that scenario with a 3-man schedule lineup. And when it switched to 4, the overtime went to like 79 to like 93 or just over 100,000. And the goal was to provide a higher level of service as part of your interest to making a staff position change. We were looking at how that would affect that overtime number. That's to me, the key part of this was the part that's coming up right after your first explanation here. I think it might be helpful in clarifying that if you start with the manpower and summarize some of these things.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
All right. So what I was looking at was twofold to create the captain's position. One would be to eliminate a little bit of the overtime because he would be able to cover during the day. We would still have 4 people here if someone took off between 8 and 5. We'd still have 4 people. Nights and weekends, although he would not be able to cover every time somebody took off, he wouldn't be able to work nights and weekends every time that came up. He would, if he was available, cover their shift. And then at that point, I would give him a day or 2 off at a later date to cover those hours that he worked. The captain's position would be a salaried position, so I would just do comp time instead of paying him overtime. He would just take some other days off. So during normal operating hours, 8 to 5, we would definitely have 4 men, and we wouldn't have to pay overtime during the day if someone takes off with the captain's position. I dropped our overtime for the request for this budget coming up. I dropped it $28,000 just because I knew that if we had the captain's spot, it would cover the time during the day and some nights and weekends. I also listed an option number 2 to actually save the city more money. We can revert back to a 3-man minimum. However, I did note that that's not suggested because then we will definitely be understaffed most of the time that people take off. Going on, so we don't have any further questions. I've been told that I'm here Monday through Friday 8 to 5, so I should be the 4th firefighter when somebody takes off during the day. However, with the way we operate, and according to the National Incident Management System, which we're required to follow, the chief is not in a position to do firefighting duties. So I have to communicate with dispatch when we're on scene. They have to request additional resources. Every 15 minutes they call for a PAR check, and a PAR check is personal accountability report. So So you have to account for everybody that's on scene. If somebody's missing, your operation stops and turns into a rescue operation for a firefighter. And dispatch does do that every 15 minutes. They'll call for a par check. And that's my responsibility to conduct those par checks. I also have to update the status of the incident to dispatch, which we call fire alarm. They will ask status whether we still have active fire, or whether we have an out tap, or whether we're mopping up the scene, or whether we're in investigative mode. I also have to coordinate with incoming mutual aid. When Chavano Park, Bearable Verde, or Castle Hills are coming, they're calling for command. Command answers them, and they're saying, we're sending an engine or ladder truck with 3 or 4 guys. Where do you want us? How do you want us to approach? So I have to tell them whether to come from the north, the south, the east, the west. If I need them to hook up to a hydrant, I'll tell them where the hydrant is, where to hit the hydrant. I'll tell them where their guys need to stage, or if their guys if I have something for them to do when they get there. Maybe they're going to be the ventilation crew because my guys are inside fighting the fire and we need a ventilation crew. So I relay that information to them. As the scene is going on, I have to communicate with the interior command, exterior command, the ventilation crew. If they need anything, then that's my job. If I have a staging area with apparatus, equipment, guys waiting to do something, if something needs to be done, then I send them to do that. And I provide any additional equipment that they're requesting. If they're on the roof, they need another saw, I grab a guy, tell them we need a saw, bring it to the roof. On the A side, these guys need it. So there's things for me to do. With our new Scott Airpack system, it came with an electronic management system. So I pop open my computer in my truck, and I can see who's on air, who's got an air pack on. It has their name, says how much air they have, and I can monitor their air while they're inside. If something happens...
But you're in your truck while you're monitoring that?
I'm at my vehicle. That's where the incident command will be. And I can see it on my computer screen. It's all, I guess, a radio frequency between their air packs and a receiver antenna on my computer in the truck. And if something happens to where I have to evacuate, then I can hit a button, and it tells everybody who's got an air pack on, they have a heads-up display in their mask, and they have what's called a personal alert safety system. It'll alert them, an alarm will go off and tell them, and they'll look at it and they'll see that we need to evacuate. They acknowledge that they received it, so I can see who all's received it and acknowledge that they need to evacuate. If they get in trouble, if they pass out, pass devices are designed, if you don't move for 30 minutes, then, or not 30 minutes, I'm sorry, 30 seconds, it'll set off an alarm. So there'll be an audible alarm inside, and the alarm will go off on my keypad showing that somebody's in trouble. Or if they're just trapped and they hit the button. So, I monitor that. So if I'm the fourth guy and I'm on the rapid intervention team, say, at the door waiting to rescue if somebody inside gets hurt, then nobody's outside to do any of this stuff. People are going to be calling for command, and I'm not going to be at command to be able to do this job.
Okay, so how is that different than the 15 hours that are not business hours? It's not 8 to 5. It's the 24 hours over the weekend. We have a 4-man crew. They get called out. One of them is going to be incident command because, like you said, that's a huge...
They come up here if we get a structure fire.
Is that the only time we need the incident command? Is it for a structure fire?
Well, there are other incidents we may have where we need an incident command, but for the most part, here in Hollywood Park, yes, structure fire.
Okay, so once you show up, you're here, but at the beginning, we have 4 guys on duty. I don't understand why you can't be the 4th guy. I hear I know incident command is very important, but I don't see the difference for the rest of the other 15 hours of the day when we have 4 guys on duty. And the majority, probably 98% of our calls are not for fire. And I just, if you're already there from 8 to 5, my feeling, and I know you said Chris Fales felt this way too, was that you should be the 4th man. And I do think that. I don't think, I started looking at this because you had originally brought it up in the context that we had one guy doing inspections And when we went to the 2 on, 4 off, he was having a hard time getting them all done during business hours. So my deal, I'm thinking, well, and then I go and I look at the incentive sheet in the budget, and I see, well, we have 3 inspectors already, and you're one of them, and you're here from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And so, I feel we're too small a town to have someone who's on duty and not working. And I feel like you should be out if an inspection needs to be done and it's has to be done between business hours and Tim can't do it. I feel like you should be doing it.
And I've picked up slack before. When he's not here, I will do inspections.
Okay.
And there's times that these businesses, they need a C of O, they want to open in a couple of days. Tim's not going to be back for a week, so I'm not going to make him wait. So I do it.
Right, and
I
you
go do
should.
inspections.
I mean, that's
absolutely.
So
I agree, but
you bringing it up in the context of the inspector thing. So now you're and then you also at that meeting said that he could fill in and we could cut down on overtime, but you can do that too. I don't think that we need. I don't think we had the full I didn't have the full information when we discussed it earlier, and I mean I
think we can sum it up this way. What changed from the last budget year to this budget year that we need another fire person?
So nothing has changed. I'm still shorthanded. So I'm trying to come up with ways to where if somebody takes off, I'm not down to 3 people.
Right.
Or one of the biggest things, which happens even more often, is we get called to a mutual aid call. We send 2 guys. Now I only have 2 guys here. So nothing has changed. I'm just trying to find ways to bring our department up to manpower to where we can operate, and I don't have to worry that we don't have enough people here to operate.
I think it makes us top heavy, and I mean if we say we saved $28,000 in overtime, but we're paying a heck of a lot more than that, creating a $62,000 position, and then we have to hire someone else, and then we have to pay for their insurance, and I mean it comes out to a lot more money than we're possibly saving there.
For the benefit of all of the council members, how long have you worked for Hollywood Park, can I ask?
23 and a half years.
Okay. And how many different hats have you worn? How many positions have you
I
had?
started from a volunteer fireman, and I've been in every position.
Okay. But also you had other jobs for the city as well?
No.
Public Works?
Oh, well, I was a Public Works director, so to
Anything
speak,
with animal
for a few
control
years.
at all or anything like that? Or?
No, when I took over Public Works, the PD took over animal control, so I never really did that.
But now you don't have Public Works, so you got a lot of extra time on your hand, I would think.
That's correct, but also Public Works was not my main priority, and I probably could have done a better job in Public Works. And when we built the Voight Center, I told Mayor Fales that there's no way I can do Public Works and Fire Department. I just couldn't give 100% to either department. And I knew what that Voight Center was going to bring. And, I mean, look at Kelly. He's here all the time. And there's no way. There's so many things to do over there between emergency management and the fire marshal's office. And it's just, there's too much to be able to do.
What I'm trying to say is
both.
I think you have more time now that you're not doing Public Works. So I think that would definitely help in the situation that we're looking at here.
And then, okay, I'm looking at the figures from last year. There were 729 calls for service. 7 of those were for structure fires. 1 was for a vehicle fire. 8 were for electrical fire / arcing, whatever that is. And 3 were for trash fires. And of the 710 remaining, 671 of them were like either for alarms or EMS. So I just feel like you should be the one filling in when you're here. During business hours, I don't think we should have to bring in. I don't think we need another person from 8 to 5, and I don't think we need to be bringing in someone to fill that position during business hours while you're here.
Was there ever a time when there were just 3 per shift?
Yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yeah, 2012 to 2015.
And then it got bumped up to 4 per shift. And
Right. Well,
like
actually, we had 3 per shift. When I became the fire chief, got rid of the assistant chief position to move to 4 people per shift. But we always had, we always had a minimum of 3,
Okay.
to where if somebody took off, we.
But
just
now
wouldn't
we're at
cover it.
4.
We are at 4.
And from the time there was 3 per shift to like Michael asked, has anything changed in Hollywood Park that would warrant a big change in manpower? I mean,
A call load, you mean?
call load there's no more buildings in Hollywood Park.
Call load has gone up a little bit, and like I said, nothing really has changed. And I've always felt that we just don't have enough people for when it's going to count. And yes, I'm not saying that every day we need 4 people here every day, but when we do get called out for a fire, or when we do get called out of the city for mutual aid, it's a pucker factor, so to speak, for me, because if we get a call, I only have 2 people here.
Right. The mutual aid agreement that we have with the other towns, does that have a big part in when you decide on your budget? I mean, does that play into it a lot, or is that because the last thing I want to do is for Chavano Park or somebody else to dictate what we need in Hollywood Park?
No, so for the mutual aid, the only factor that I look at with budget is the manpower. That's really the only issue I have. As far as the equipment we have, we've got the proper equipment to provide mutual aid. It's just the manpower, and we always send 2 people on a mutual aid call, which leaves us kind of short. And if say Bearable Verde has a structure fire, all our mutual aid departments are there, so there really isn't anybody else to come help cover our department. We'd have to go further out in the county, so we would have other departments from further out, maybe Windcrest or Leon Springs, would come to assist us. So it's going to be a very delayed response. I can get people here, it's just going to take a little longer.
What percentage of the mutual aid has been called down, stand down, that you have to come back? I mean, it's pretty high.
Yeah, most of them are. I would say probably
90,
a good
90?
80% of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think for the last one that we got for the packet for July, I think like 23 out of 26 were called off en route, I think.
One last question, and I don't know if this has any bearing. It probably doesn't, but I'm just curious. When you changed the schedule, the way the scheduling was from 24:48 to 48:96, is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Did that have any effect on the overtime?
No.
Okay.
I think
Does that have any effect on coverage?
Well, no, because it's it's the same. If somebody takes off, people are signing up to fill that position.
the only point I would beg to differ on somewhat is on the 2 on, 4 off. When I was looking at the way the schedules play out, if someone like Tim works a Saturday and Sunday, then he's off for the next 5 days. He's worked 1 weekday that week, and he's only able to do inspections 1 day that week. Then if he's working 1 weekend day, he's only available for 2 days that following week. So that's 3 days out of 10 that we've had someone with inspector credentials able to help during the day, during the week. I noticed that, and I was surprised. I asked Johnny to kind of summarize the number of and the type of inspections that are typically requested. Now, not all of them require a lot of time, like 2 or 3 hours, but the sprinkler inspections where they have to make sure they hold pressure, and there are several types of inspections that are more involved. And I was thinking, well, okay, we want to provide good service. We also want to have a fully staffed or well-staffed department. And I just was trying to get what I looked at, the overtime number, as a out-of-control line item without a catastrophe to justify it. So I was trying to see if we could find a middle ground where we could have a combination. And that's where I had.
Let me ask you on these inspections. You mentioned here, it says you currently pay one person. That's one person that's on the fire department that is certified to do these inspections.
There's three, but only pay one person as an inspector.
Okay. And this is something that has to be done by an employee of the Hollywood Park Fire Department. Is this something that can? I guess I'm asking: is this something that can be farmed out where we're not paying? I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there.
Yeah.
You
can hire someone to just do inspections.
But why would we do that?
We have three
people
qualified
to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. But how much more is it?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there.
Right.
I'm gonna throw
I don't
it
know
back.
why. I don't know why we would do it. Maybe just to bug you, but I'm just asking the question.
Chris, can the firemen be assigned other duties besides just the fire department? Meaning like, well, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Can they do like data entry or something like this while they're in-house, nothing's going on, where then we would not be hiring maybe an extra person for Kelly or for Janice or something because they would be doing some of data entry or something. I don't know what's allowed and what's not.
You know, that's a good question, but I think it may be fraught with compromised service if, as a result of them being occupied somewhere else, they're not available. Because that's the one thing. I don't know. Can you answer that better?
Well, I'm sure any city employee can be told to do any particular job.
It could be firefighter.
Firefighter, but
Kelly, you're a firefighter.
you know, the problem is, like you said, it takes time to do inspections, or if they're out with Kelly, or if they're doing something else, they're not here. And like one of my inspectors of the three of us is he's paid to be an engineer. He's responsible for the truck. In the mornings, they check all the trucks and equipment. He's responsible for everything on that truck and making sure it works. And that's how I find out about all these things that are wrong that come up with the trucks. The engineer, that's their responsibility. That's what they get paid for. They also get paid to drive the truck and get the firefighters to the scene safely. And, they're trained as engineers. So if they're not here in the station, they're out somewhere else, then I don't have them here to drive the truck when we get a call.
Doesn't everybody know how to drive the truck?
Everybody knows how to drive a truck, but the engineer is getting paid to do that. That's his responsibility.
Does the engineer also keep a log of maintenance and everything else on the trucks, or is that just?
I keep a log plus
Okay.
what we have in the accounting.
Okay.
Because when I threw that out there, I meant while y'all were here in your station, sitting in your area over there.
Yeah.
Not meaning send you here and send you there, but
I don't see why they couldn't be given a responsibility from another department. And that's completely up to y'all. Yeah. I don't see a problem with that. They work for the city.
I'm glad we're having this opportunity to share ideas and information. I guess that the total number of inspections works out to about nine and a half a week over the course of the year. And while it's not the only determinant in our other purpose of this meeting tonight, and that's to have a consensus on the proposed tax rate, it certainly is a component. And if the council members think there are certain parts of this equation we can do some more research in, we've updated the budget figures with the updated group health insurance numbers we've been given, and do you guys want to? Or do you guys are comfortable to make a decision on this MOSHA agenda item, or do you think it warrants more attention?
I have another question, Johnny. Can we do the inspections at particular times when you're at your slack time? I don't know what is slack time. 11 to 2, 11 to 3. While you're here, in other words, during your hours, do we have to have that inspection between whatever and whatever? Can we fix the time that we can have them done?
Most of the time, we do the inspections whenever we have time to do the regular inspections. On other occasions, there's several doctor's offices that tell us, they request that we come at certain times when they don't have patients there, We try to accommodate everybody. On the C of O inspections, we pretty much set up a time and date whenever the alarm guy or the sprinkler guy is available and when we're available, so we have to call and we make arrangements. So it varies, but on the regular routine inspections, they're done when we don't have anything else going on, and Tim will usually walk them off, say, I'm going to go out and do inspections, and then I see him 3 or 4 hours later, and he comes back.
Well, I was wondering, because they mentioned about you doing it some slack time, for lack of a better word. But if you could figure that out, or we can get that done right after lunch, 1 to 3, hypothetically. So you're always going to be here, so you're the coverage. And then they get it done at that time. We can dictate when those get done, can't we?
Absolutely.
Or
yeah.
do we have to do it?
For, like I said, most of them, yes, we could pop in whenever we want, and then others have requested that we come at certain
Just
times.
so as we have a schedule where things are happening, this is going to happen during this time.
I think I deal with the city, San Antonio, all the time on inspections. I'm a general contractor, and I deal with the fire inspections and electrical and all that stuff. And the way they work is, you have to make yourself, as a business, getting your C of O, you have to make yourself available all day, because they can't make an appointment. Now some of these, I'm sure, like sprinkler systems or whatever, you have to make an appointment because it does take so much time. But a lot of this stuff is you just have to make yourself available. At least how the city of San Antonio works is you have the door unlocked all day long for them to come in and inspect.
Yeah, sure. And so basically how it works is we'll pop in the door and say, hey, we're here to do a fire inspection.
Right.
And if it's a doctor's office, like Dr. Carolyn Flannery, she says, hey, can you come between these hours because I don't have any patients then, or I have less patients? Well, we're going to accommodate her. We're not going to say, no, we're doing it right now. That's,
right.
So,
but that probably doesn't happen often, right?
But like I said, it's mainly just the doctor's offices that do that. But most of the time, we'll pop in, and we just do the inspection. We really haven't ever been turned away. But if anybody says, no, you can't do the inspection, then we have to walk away. We turn around and walk out, and I have to get an administrative warrant to go do the fire inspection.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I've never encountered that in all the years that I've been doing fire inspections. So the majority of the time, I guess to answer your question is, yes, we can pop in anytime during the day, and we really
Right.
don't have issues doing inspections.
Because and for the reason of you're a fire department, so you can't make a schedule, you can't make an appointment, and say, well, I can't go to the fire because I have an appointment to make an inspection. I mean, and that's why they do that.
Right, and the only appointments we make is mainly on new construction and remodels when we have to go in and do a C of O.
Right. And that's like an all-day affair. I mean, you don't have to be there at a certain time.
Well, I mean, we have to be there whenever us and the contractor is available to be there. I mean, if he can't be there at 9 in the morning, and he says, well, I could be there between 10 and 3, and we can, then we'll make an arrangement to show up and go. But, yeah, if we end up getting a call, then we can't show up at that time,
Right.
then we'll go after the call or something.
Have you thought of doing the volunteer fire department again?
I'm sorry?
Have you thought about doing the volunteer fire department, that program again? Would that help all you?
We never stopped doing it. It's just there's not the response for volunteers as there used to be. I mean, people are working 2 jobs, and it's hard to I have 2 volunteer firemen right now that will come and help out, but they also work, so they're not available all the time. It's mainly nights and weekends. Randy Tomasini is a volunteer fireman, our deer guy. So if we get a call at night or on weekend, it's possible he may show up to the call, but it's not guaranteed. But with the volunteers, the biggest problem that we've had is, if we were to get an influx of volunteers right now, there's no way we could provide them with the gear needed. It's just the cost is outrageous. And in the past, when we used to have good volunteer calling, we would have fundraisers. I mean, I don't know how many barbecues we put on over the years, and all that money would go to paying for gear for the volunteers. So it was self-sufficient. So in order to do that, we would have to get enough people in here willing to put on a fundraiser and collect money to do it.
I'd say, you'd say it was, would you agree it's a pretty fundamental shift of the, business model, for lack of a better word, to try to apply a volunteer blueprint where you have an existing paid department. I think it might be, if a situation required it, it could be something with a 2-year window ahead of time to plan for or plan towards, because the staffing is so different for Bulverde, say in their case, and or Windcrest and our situation. I think it would be difficult to do on any kind of short notice. I think we're a couple of years away from an opportunity to explore negotiations with Hill Country Village, and I still intend to pursue that. Any other items for discussion on this topic?
I would just bring up then, I know that sometimes we're using part-timers instead of using overtime, right? We have like
Correct.
5 part-timers, but only 3 of them are kind of active. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, I would like to see us continue to do that. And then I also think there could be an issue. I mean, if I don't think that we should hire. I don't think we should do the captain position. But if y'all decided to, I'm not sure that that's real ethical. Just to say, okay, we have a new position and you're going to do it. I don't know that. I mean, I think what is proper is to open it up to other people.
Public announcement.
So I did offer it to all 3 lieutenants, and one lieutenant owns a pool business. He did not want to work Monday through Friday 8 to 5. He would lose money, so he denied it. And the other lieutenant also has a second job that he said he would lose money, and he did not want to work Monday through Friday 8 to 5, so he denied that position as well.
And I mean, Tim's awesome. You know, I mean, I got nothing but I got everything good to say about Tim, but it just, that did, just saying we're going to create it and it's for you. But so you did ask the others.
Yes.
I would also be supportive of seeking 1 or 2 more part-time workers and funding the equipment that would need to be purchased for them, if it would help keep the overtime.
You know what,
under
Janice?
control.
Is there something with us getting to 50 employees that there's a reason we want to avoid that?
Just the FMLA regulation, that's all.
That's it.
How far away are we?
We're,
We've got about 5 or 6.
I think, we're like at 45 or 46 right now.
And FMLA is a pain to administrate, but it's not that bad.
I think.
So you ready to have a barbecue, Johnny?
Holly's got
Yeah,
all the energy.
the only problem, I mean, it has to be done through a volunteer association that's tax exempt and whatever their status is. I mean, the paid department can't do a fundraiser, so we'd have to get a volunteer department put together to actually put on that fundraiser and put the money into their account.
So is there just a lack of new guys wanting to do that now, other than the equipment cost? Is there just a lower number of people going?
So even Bearable Verde, they used to be all volunteer, total volunteer department, and now they just have all part timers. They do have some volunteers left over, but it just went from an all volunteer department to an all paid department.
And is that to avoid benefits by not having them work full time?
I'm not sure.
I know Windcrest has a few paid people, correct? But by and large, it's a volunteer
Right.
crew. In fact, they're courting Tim to.
Yeah,
Join them.
Tim is actually the acting fire chief at Windcrest right now, and so he's telling me he doesn't want to take that position, but I don't know. I don't want to lose him.
I hate to lose him. Okay, one more thing that I'd like to bring up about the fire department. So I went back and listened to the budget recording from, I think it was July 19 last year. and we agreed, there was consensus to divert $80,000 to the capital asset fund, and that wasn't done. Instead, it went into the reserve line item in here, and we ended up with like $247,000 in the reserve line instead of 180 or something like that. And I would like to move that money where it should have gone out of the current budget, move it out of that reserve line where it should have gone last year.
I understand it was discussed in that meeting, but it wasn't expressed as an agenda item or to officially move it.
It was
on an agenda?
It was consensus in the budget meeting. Chris Vale said, so we have consensus, we're going to move $80,000 into there.
So that way you don't, if you would like to, it's of course a council decision, we can put it on the council agenda for, when we meet.
For a
Tuesday.
budget amendment,
'cause,
right?
I mean, I know we're talking about the fire department, but it's not on this.
Right.
But we can put
Gotcha.
it on that agenda and you can vote on it at that
You
time.
can do it.
If you want, if y'all would allow me to put it on the budget, on the agenda, that's up to you, Mayor.
I mean, that would be, I guess, the correct official way to address it as something that was intended, but
Well, let's put it on there, and if they agree, then
Do we have to make a motion to put it on the agenda?
No, because you can't
Okay.
make a motion on it, but if the mayor tells me to put it on, I suggest
Yeah.
then we can.
okay.
yeah, we can get that.
And I would like to discuss again diverting additional funds to that capital asset fund to use. So we're building up our
For last year and this year.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, y'all didn't really say too much about it when I brought that up at the last budget meeting, but what do y'all think about it? I mean, it's not necessarily for a new truck, but it's for whatever we end up doing so that we're saving as we go and then we're not hit with a big chunk.
If we're not restricted to its use specifically, I would think that with that intention, but it's not
It's not
a restriction.
Right.
I'll put it on the agenda.
But that would be included in this budget that I'm talking about right now, right?
Yes, I'll put on the agenda if
Oh, you have to have that on the agenda?
yeah, just to make it clear so that way you don't have to worry about it. I thought I would put on the agenda for the next budget, for the next council decision, that we would do 80,000 from last year. And if you wanted to vote on that also to ensure that, it's going on there for this year too, we can do that.
I mean, what do y'all think? What do y'all think about for this year? We can talk about this right now, right? Because we're talking about the budget right now. Okay.
For this
So
year,
what do y'all think?
Which is basically you got to skip the year.
Well, no, I want to catch up. I want to take it out of our current budget right now. We have a line item for the reserve under government contract, government building, or whatever it is. And it's $247,000. That never should have that was not meant to be that high last year because $80,000 of that was going to go into the other. So that money is still in reserves. Some of it has been taken out, but there's still a lot of money in there. And so I would like to divert from that line item in the budget
Fiscal year
that we're in right now, take that $80,000 and put it where it should have been last year. Take it out of the reserve line, put it in that capital asset fund where it's earmarked. It's not a restricted fund, but it's earmarked for whatever fire vehicles we get.
Does it matter whether we put it in this current budget or the next year? Does it make a difference?
I want to do both. I want to do the
If we do it next year,
80,000
it's
from last year.
160,000. If we do it this fiscal
Okay,
year,
so it's 80,000 annual
Yes.
deal every year.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what we used to do, and I think it's a good habit. That way, when we've got the expense of a truck, we've got a big chunk of money in there, and we're not freaking out going, how are we going to pay for it?
we're sandbagging.
If we
And is it only used for equipment and that sort of thing, or can it be used as far as like additional personnel?
it can be used any way we want to use it.
It's not
not
restricted. It's
Okay,
just
okay.
earmarked for the truck. But yeah, I mean, we could use it for anything we wanted, actually.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to access tax pool funds on the street project, and that's a capital fund that's for whatever uses are intended for it. It has a street. It's intended for use with the street, and so we'll be using that as well as the street fund, and then going into capital reserve to fund the balance. And I think I'd like to think we can get all the mileage these trucks have to offer out of them. I know Windcrest just retired their ladder truck this year. It's a 1986 truck, and they're looking at $1.2 million to replace it. And but they got 30
years?
They got 33 years out of the one they have, and that was encouraging to me. It's twice the age of ours, and it's not what Johnny would like to hear right now at all. But it's
I'm not.
yeah.
Okay, so they've got some bigger commercial properties.
They, the height of their buildings, I don't know if that's a distinction, but I think it's good to have it in mind, and we've been good stewards of our budgeting. I think we can make a correction to reallocate monies that were put in reserve as part of that capital fund, and we can look at an amount to earmark. I guess it all depends on our topic number one, and how we want to look at the proposed tax rate and deciding how much we want to try to save or allocate.
I've got a question. This $80,000, is this something that we decide to do as a savings, or is this something required?
No, it's a savings.
It's
It's
savings.
not
So
required
this
at
can be
all.
changed
It's just,
at
it's
any
been
time.
done over the years. And that way, when we have to get a new truck, we're not
It's
starting
not a
from scratch.
surprise. Yeah.
We're gonna have to take a loan out.
And well, they do tie together. I think if we want to make a decision on the fire department personnel tonight, we can or should, and then we can, because it does relate to the other, we can table it for the council meeting, or however you guys want to address it.
Well, you know my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Things.
I'm not in favor of having a new position. I think we have ample coverage right now, and Councilman Bailey, what I had said, what changed from last budget to this budget, I don't think there's been a lot of changes. And we've hired a public works director to handle public works. Johnny was doing public works. He's got time to do this position. So I'm not seeing the need for a fifth person on duty.
What do y'all think?
So are y'all still in favor of the overtime? I mean, then we'll have overtime to pay if we don't hire that other person.
Yeah, well, we
There will
can
be
still
a-
continue to use part-timers.
There will be a structured overtime, or scheduled overtime as an element of the budget, but we're trying to get it closer to in the 40s and down from the 70s. That's what Johnny was saying.
Well, 45,000 is scheduled overtime.
Yeah.
So if we stay there, then there is going to be no unscheduled overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the route y'all want to take, that's going to save money. But then we're definitely going to be down to 3 people quite often. So I'm just, I'm not trying to bust the city, and I'm not trying to spend a bunch of money. All I'm trying to do is provide the best possible service we can to y'all, and keep my firefighters safe when we actually do have a fire. So that's where I'm coming from. But I know it's y'all's money, and I know there's other things that have to be done in this city other than run a fire department. So I get it, and whatever y'all's decision is, I'll make it work.
Well,
It's
if you fill in during the day, then we're not paying overtime during the day. And then if we can hire part-timers when we can for non-business hours, then we can do that. And then, I mean, sometimes we're going to have to pay
Well,
overtime.
even during the day, I'm telling you, if we get a fire during the day, I'm going to be incident command. I'm not going to be on a fire
Right, but
hose.
we have mutual aid too. I mean, it's the same thing though. And if there's 4 on duty and something happens, yeah, you're coming, but you're probably getting here when mutual aid is too. And what if you're not in town? Then someone else is doing incident command. I mean, yes, there will always be someone doing incident command, whether you're here or not, right?
That's very true, and the lieutenant will be incident command till I show up, and he transfers command. But then at that point, we have the amount of people we need. Where if we don't, and we're down to 3, when I show up, we're still not going to have the amount of people that we need.
But we count on our mutual aid.
Well, we do count on mutual aid. Without mutual aid, there's things we couldn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
So,
mutual part.
you know, all I'm saying, and I know this has come up in the past, and you know well and good that they have that 2 and 2 out rule, and if we show up with 3 people, we can't go fight the fire interior until a 4th person shows up, unless somebody's trapped inside. That's the only way we can go in. So, like I said, we will make it work. It's just how good of a service is it going to be right off the bat? You know, you saw what happened on the Donella fire a few years ago.
Yeah, but there were 2
We got
people gone at
stuck.
one time.
There were. We only had 3 people on duty that day. And one of them left to go get the truck. I had somebody come in, or somebody stayed actually, to take that person to go pick the truck up. And there were 2 people here.
And I'm not saying we go back to a 3-man crew. I mean, I think that we, keep the 4, and if we have to pay some overtime, then we do it.
Okay.
You know, one way to possibly look at this before someone could choose to move to take action is if we considered the captain idea, we would have an additional person during the day, during the week. It would help keep Tim with our staff, and we will reduce the amount of overtime that we've been spending from in the 90s this year to 45 this coming year. It does require an additional firefighter. I think it's a tangible difference that we can decide if we like or not, and go forward if you guys do.
But that's not correct that we would reduce overtime to where it's only 40. The 45,000 is the scheduled overtime, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So I mean, even if Tim was here,
Well,
if
someone
you would
wasn't
still
available,
have
You would cover
overtime.
here and there, but not every time.
Right.
Yeah,
so
you would still-
it's not going to eliminate
we wouldn't
the
fill
overtime.
we wouldn't fill that extra position with someone getting overtime if it meant needing to have 4 people. We would go with 3 people on those cases instead of paying overtime.
No.
Let me ask you,
Okay.
we had, when there was 3
Like this example.
per shift here, and they switched to 4 per shift, did the scheduled overtime go up?
Well, absolutely.
I mean-
because
I
we had
mean-
more people.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it went up.
So-
back-
Because we didn't
So
add
explain-
staff. We didn't add the staff when we added
back
the
in
shifts.
back in the day when we had only 3 firefighters on, we had a bunch of volunteers too.
Right.
So we had manpower. We had volunteers that would
So
hang
if-
out up here.
And this is just, I mean, just asking a question, because I'm the village idiot when it comes to this stuff, but, so if we had 5 per shift, our scheduled overtime would go up yet again.
Correct.
So what's the point in hiring more people if you're going to be scheduling more overtime? That doesn't make any sense to me.
And that was the reason why we opted to go with the overtime rather than hiring 3 more guys. It was cheaper to pay overtime and part-time.
Okay, but we went from 3 guys to 4 guys with the understanding or with the idea of, okay, we're short-staffed here, we're spending too much money in overtime, so we're going to go to a 4-man shift. But now we're spending overtime on 12 guys instead of 9 guys?
No, that's not how that worked. It wasn't. We didn't go to 4-man per shift to save overtime. We went to 4-man shifts to have 4 people here. And that was the suggestion of the city. We had a city manager at that time. His name was Drew Traeger. He told me that he would like to put 3 more guys on to have 4 guys here and get rid of the deputy chief. Because I was deputy chief and we had a chief. And then when I moved up to chief, we dropped the deputy chief position and hired 3 firefighters. So it was not to save overtime. It was to have more people here on staff during the day.
Okay, so no matter what you do, whether you go from 4 to 5 or 4 to 8, you're still going to have that much more overtime, scheduled overtime?
There will be scheduled overtime.
Just
the only
based on
thing-
per person?
The only thing that would do is not have to have unscheduled overtime. We would have a minimum of 4, and we'd still have 4 people here.
Okay.
Johnny, I know I've said this before. The fire department is very important to me. My uncle was the fireman that died when the Bears won the Super Bowl. So every time you look at the Tribune, there's the picture, we won, and there's my uncle being carried down on a stretcher, okay, at a transient hotel in Chicago. Equipment is number one, important for me, okay? But I looked at this, and I don't think this is important. I don't think bringing another man on, okay, is important right now, okay?
Sure.
I'm just letting everybody know. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I agree. One more of y'all want to agree with us? Okay, then there you go.
Will someone make a motion to be voted on then? And we can,
Action be taken on this item for additional firefighter or captain.
all right, anyone want a second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor of the move to table item 2 on our agenda, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right. Issue carries unanimously. All right, thank you. All right, looking at item number 1 is discuss take possible action to approve the proposed tax rate for the town of Hollywood Park at 51.0081 cents per $100. And we've since gotten updated information from the county that very closely matched what we expected. It's my opinion, with the expenditures we're going to make into our streets and with the increase on the group health, I would prefer to leave the tax rate as it is and as it's been for the last 3 years, at least one more year before we to be able to possibly consider a legitimate change that would have some impact on the residents. At 2 cents per 100 or something really wouldn't. I don't think it sounds impressive if we're lowering it, but it's so small. It would need to be quite a bit more to be felt, and then at that level, it would definitely impact us. Any thoughts on the council?
I just agree. I agree that we should leave the tax rate as it is and move forward. At least, like the mayor said, for another year. I don't see any benefit of a small change, one way or the other.
How much do we lose? How much does the city lose if we go down to the effective tax rate?
That's $60,000, I thought. Is that? So the 0.49.
No, the 0.497.
Yeah, it's like, that's like 0.0032380, that decrease a little bit.
Is it about 60,000? What is the impact that it would have on?
Let's see. Calculate here.
Between 50.
I mean, if we roll back the tax rate to this 0.49, really, we're just talking pennies.
I don't think we should do it till we get all the streets taken.
If I was going to run for office and I want to say I lowered taxes, I might care, but
Right.
it's really not my. It's not in my.
You're not running again?
I'm really not
Okay.
looking
But
at that
at the
sort
same
of thing.
time, whatever we roll it back, if you look at the sales tax that's budgeted, and Chris, I think we were looking at those numbers. Our sales tax currently right now for calendar year, where are we at? $750,000. Okay, not fiscal year, but calendar year. I think it's $750,000.
What?
So
Yeah,
Retail
not just
sales
talking
tax.
about the general fund. This is just talking about the sales tax that goes into the general fund.
Yeah, it's twice that, right?
The overall is twice that because
Right.
there's earmarked funds.
Right.
So, there's some give and play here. If you did want to lower the tax rate, there is room to cover, I think.
What?
I think
I
we should
don't
leave tax
think
rate
we'll see
alone.
as big an increase in group health next year because this was the penalty from the transition period that they were allowing from the ACA, passage of the ACA, where they were trying to give the insurance companies time to catch up and kind of stabilize. And so with that period ending, we got hit with the big increase. And we'll see that in a minute. It's like between 36 and 43% is what we ended up at.
One thing that I think about or consider on this tax deal is the Voight Center and the pool and all that stuff that we have. I think we should be banking money for the future for that, to keep it in the condition that it's in. And if whatever extra money we get for that, I think that's a good plan, because 3-4 years down the road, when everything starts breaking, and it will, it's going to get expensive, and we don't want it to fall into disrepair. Especially since we've got an award for it. We want to keep it that way, and we want to keep Hollywood Park that way. And I think, everybody wants lower taxes, and everybody wants to say, I lower taxes, but really, at the end of the day, what good does that do?
I think we're going to see about an $83,000 increase in group health insurance premiums in the upcoming year. And I think Michael agree we'll be able to offset that a lot this year with the business from Clear Channel.
Absolutely.
But I think
Or
the other.
Right.
You never know.
We don't know.
I think. And so, but everything else is going up in cost, and without exception, I believe. And just wanting to continue to be good stewards of our streets, and it should appear that every 2 or 3 years we'll need to invest a significant amount of money to follow the master street plan. But I would think that at this time next year we should be in a better position to have an opportunity to consider a better, more genuine tax rate change.
agreed.
Would someone like to move to take possible action on the proposed tax rate?
I move that we take action to approve the proposed tax rate for the town of Hollywood Park at .510081 per $100.
We have any citizen comments? All right. We have a second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys.
Scott brought up as far as the swimming pool and related. Do we have an account set up for that, like we do the fire truck, where we put some money in it?
Before you move on, what time?
Yes. I was going to say it is 7:08 p.m. and there is a line item for maintenance and repairs. The budget set aside for that is not sufficient.